6. All right. Welcome, everybody, to our special workshop Tuesday, April 11th, 11 a.m. Call to order. Welcome. Declaration of a quorum, 6 members present. Bring us to item C, public comments. Do we have anything? We have nothing. That brings us to item D, D1. Consideration, discussion, and possible action related to a management oversight workshop for the CSISD Human Resources Department. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Horak and board members. I will pass thanks to Mr. Somack and Dr. Perry to provide us our Human Resources Oversight Management Report. Mr. Somack.
Thank you, Mr. Martindale, Mr. Horak, members of the board. This is my very first board presentation. I'm very excited to be here today, but also very humbled that Into Learning took time out of their busy day, Dr. Lancaster, Dr. Colson, to come and support me in my presentation. I can't imagine any other reason as to why they would be here. But nonetheless, very excited to be here with you today. Have a quick presentation that we'll go through. I will answer any and all questions that you have as we go along. First and foremost, I wanted to start by introducing you to our team of associates that we have in Human Resources. A lot of them were new whenever we entered into the position last year. First and foremost, let me introduce behind me is Ms. Bridget Cooper, who is our Assistant Director of Human Resources, who is also a Consol grad just a few years ago. And she and I entered, as you well know, last year right at the start of the busy season. So we are looking forward to having a year under our belt as we enter into this season. This is something that we shared out with all of the district so people would understand exactly who they needed to contact if they had questions at the HR department. You can kind of see here what everybody's responsible for, but I will also tell you one of the things that we have done is we've worked really hard to cross-train everyone and partner people up. And that is because as we went through the busy season last year, we quickly identified people that were drowning and people that didn't have as much work to do. And it was just kind of one of those things where we were learning as we went along. And so this year we are fully prepared with everybody having a partner that will help them through this busy season as we progress throughout the summer to ensure that we are as efficient as possible and to ensure that we are not not going over on overtime or anything to that effect. And so we're very confident that we've got a good plan in place. And this is our team of associates within HR. So just a quick presentation outline for you today. As you well know, it is board policy that we have this management oversight. We'll talk to you about recruiting, which is a buzzword across the state right now, something that we've been working very hard on ourselves. Substitutes, employee overview, benefits, how we communicate out of human resources, our procedures. We'll walk you through some of those. We could talk about that for a long amount of time, but we'll just keep it to understanding what the hiring process is. We'll establish our performance metrics moving forward. We'll talk a little bit about employee awards and then any of our celebrations and how we will move forward from this presentation. So defining management oversight, went ahead and entered that in there for you. As some of you are new and you may not have been a part of this most recently, but the Center for Reform of School Systems definition is the policies and processes used by a school board to ensure the integrity and performance of the district's major business and operational systems. So straight from board policy, you'll see it there that the board is responsible for overseeing management of the following major systems. And last but not least on that bullet list is human resources. Recruiting. So one of the things that we've tried to do since we've entered into human resources is really establish a stronghold with our partnership in Texas A&M University. Obviously, it is something that we had from Ms. Cooper's experience at the school north of us, working in their district, working with clinical teachers, myself working at Oakwood for the last 7 years. We had a lot of different connections, but we weren't getting as many clinical teachers as we wanted. So Jeff Mann and I actually sat down with Kim Parrish and Tara Slayton back in the fall to kind of establish what we could do to get additional clinical teachers. Now, naturally, there's always more in the spring than there is in the fall. And we made some concessions and we did a few things. And we are seeing the rewards of the fact that we now have 83 student teachers or clinical teachers this semester. We will have more next spring, but we've also expanded our MOUs, our agreements with different universities around the state. Web-centric ACP is an online program that does a lot to put people into school classrooms. SFA this year, University of Houston, Victoria. We are pretty much taking anybody and everybody we can as a clinical teacher because that is the next wave of teachers. And we really like the idea of a clinical teacher because they have actual classroom experience, albeit maybe as a clinical and it's free. it's more experience than someone who's going to come to us on a DOI designation or someone who's going to come to us with an alternative certification. And so clinical teachers we see as the wave of the future. And because we have so many clinical teachers here and we have so many clinical teachers that are in our buildings, we really focused our efforts on recruiting them. With that, the Friday before spring break, we hosted 57 clinical teachers. Ms. Parrish and Ms. Slayton, who are university, the people that we work with most closely to get them placed in our buildings. And we did this at Another Broken Egg. So special thank you to Carol Barrett and Tap Benz for hosting our large group. This was actually a great success. We invited 62 and 57 showed up. 15 applied to be substitutes out of that pool. 22 applied to our job pools. And we utilized them to promote our job pools on social media. So you'll see here, we put up the banner that we got from Jeff Mann. And I'm really excited to say that of those 8 young ladies right there, 6 of them have already been hired by the school district for next year, which is big and it's huge for us. 3 of those are sped teachers, and we are working potentially on 1 more of those being hired later this week. They have an interview set up on Wednesday or Thursday of this week. What you see here on the side is my message to our clinical teachers was to start here, to begin their career here in CSISD. And I gave them a variety of reasons as to why they should work in CSISD. First and foremost, superintendent board support, all of the support that we get from this school district, from our families and everything else that goes along with it. Grad school opportunities. I encourage them to stay, to go back to grad school, to get their master's while they still were in the mode of being a student. Reference the fact that we're a top 16 school district in the state of Texas. I also pointed out how important it is that when you go into your new job, that you have familiarity with the people that you're working with and that it just sets you up for more success. And so a lot of them having clinical taught here already have connections, already kind of understand the ins and outs of the systems that we use. And so I was really trying to stress that point as something that can help them get off to a successful start. And then obviously I talked about the proximity to the big cities. And the biggest thing that I wanted to drive home to them was if you get a job in College Station ISD, you can get a job anywhere in the state of Texas. Once you've worked in College Station ISD, people will notice that on your resume. The biggest thing standing in front of clinical teachers previous to now, when we were so hard across the state looking for people, was their lack of experience. Now, a lot of school districts are offering letters of intent to clinical teachers on the spot. They don't even let them get out of the building, don't even let them have an opportunity to go interview anywhere else. And so our big push was to try to encourage them to apply here. And like I said, 6 out of those 8 have already been hired, and we're very excited about how that turned out. And we're looking forward to seeing how many more may be hired in the future.
Can I ask a quick question on clinical teachers? I mean, I love this. Where are they in their schooling exactly, and how long are they clinical teachers?
So they
Just
clinical
remind me.
teach for a semester. So they are still considered a college student. And so they'll start early January, they finish up mid to late April, and then they will typically be a substitute teacher for us for the remainder of the semester. And so they will graduate this semester. Everybody that you see in that picture there will graduate May 9th and May 15th range, somewhere in there. I don't know when A&M's graduation is, but this is the last hurdle before they are officially adults and living that responsible life.
And not just these 8, the whole 57?
Every single one
Got
of them. Every single one of them. We didn't invite anybody to the breakfast that wasn't going to be readily available to be in the workforce next year. So we screen that, and they don't typically get to clinical teach. Every once in a while, they might clinical teach and then they have to go back and finish something like a semester. But typically speaking, they're not clinical teaching unless they're ready to graduate at the end of the semester.
And then quickly on, will there be a similar number in the fall graduates?
They have not placed anyone for the fall yet. We were at the A&M job fair last week. Ms. Cooper was stopping and talking to people. I was as well, and we are asking for as many as possible. We are trying to expand our partnership. I have told them that there's no reason for them to go north, that they already live in College Station. We have enough schools to host every clinical teacher they have. And really and truly, it's just switching the mindset of our principals. Once upon a time, I didn't get to clinical teacher whenever I was in school, and I'd volunteered here from my freshman year all the way through my senior year. I couldn't clinical teacher. I couldn't get it done. And then I didn't get a job here my first year because there was nothing available. I left for a year and came back. That mindset has shifted. That's not really the world that we're living in right now. Now, granted, that was a few years ago, but nonetheless, I still had the same haircut. All right. So the early resignation incentive, first and foremost, thank you guys for approving this. This has proven to be widely successful for us and help us a tremendous amount. So as you all know, because you've already received this information at a board workshop, we had 80 employees that qualified for the incentive. 9 employees that submitted paperwork that did not qualify, but ultimately it was 41 at the elementary level, 4 at the intermediate, 16 middle, 14 high, and 5 from special services. We budgeted $40,000, and because I'm deathly afraid of Amy draws, we spent $40,000. So I'm very excited to tell you at this point right now, we have already backfilled 33 of those professional positions. We have a number of interviews that are taking place this week. Our principals have hit the ground running. They understand the importance of getting to our clinical teachers. Ms. Cooper can tell you last week while we were at the TAMU job fair, bigger school districts from the bigger cities were there and they were interviewing on the spot and offering letters of intent on the spot. One of the nice things about that job fair last week was they kept us in regions. So we were with Region 6. When we were sitting in Region 6, we looked great. You put us next to Dallas ISD that's starting you at $61,000 and it's a little bit tougher sell, okay? So we did really well at the job fair. We've shared all that information, but we are very excited. We do think this early resignation incentive has helped us tremendously. I've received overwhelmingly positive feedback from our principals. They're very appreciative to be able to hit the ground running, and this wouldn't have been possible without your approval, so thank you so much. All right, so I marked from March the 20th of last year until August the 31st of last year. And the reason I did March the 20th is if you recall, that was when our early resignation incentive ended this year. So I just kind of wanted to give you a window of what we did last year. So I told you we had 80 that qualified. Well, last year, from March the 20th until August the 31st, we hired 176 certified teacher applicants. And you can see the ebbs and flows of that season. So right there at the beginning of May, it was a little bit of a peak, and then it kind of settled down a little bit. I mean, it was still busy, but then you can see the summertime. In June, it was a lot. Ms. Cooper and I were looking at each other like, what did we get ourselves into? We were learning on the fly, but it was a lot of people that we got hired, and we are hopeful that we won't have to hire as many people this year. It seems as though most people really took to heart the early resignation incentive, and maybe now at this point, it's just going to be those people who are moving on because their spouse or someone else got a different job. It's going to be more kind of one-offs and not just a mass exodus at the end. So in that same time frame with paraprofessionals, we hired 181 paraprofessionals. Now you will notice on this trend line, August is when we really got hit hard on paraprofessionals, and that is very much par for the course. So with that, we fully expect that to happen again this year, but we're already backfilling paraprofessional positions for next year and working through that daily to try to support our campuses.
Can I ask a quick question about
ma'am.
that? So with the early resignation incentive plus the paraprofessionals hire at the end, is this something that we should consider doing some sort of incentive for paraprofessionals in the future as well? Maybe a different scale, but do you think that would be helpful?
So paraprofessionals turn over quite a bit in my experience. They've been turning over throughout the year. Even though we hired 181 last year, throughout the year, they turn over quite frequently. Even when I was a principal, I would oftentimes have paraprofessionals that we would turn over, but we would always have a go-to sub that we could pull into that position. Obviously, it comes down to budgeting. It was something that Dr. Perry, Ms. Draws, and myself considered very much this year, but it was really with ESSER funds and everything else and that hard line of $40,000. Like I said, we budgeted for 40, we spent 40, not a dollar more. We would have loved to have been able to do something on a different scale for Paris, but I don't know how big it would have been, and I have no idea how much that could have impacted us. At the time, only 9 submitted something trying to qualify. So I do think it's something that could potentially be expanded upon, but I think there would need to be a lot of talk and consideration, and I think you would have to scale it back the range just to ensure that you didn't have a mass exodus of paraprofessionals because they do turn over quite frequently.
Okay, thank you.
Substitutes, everybody's favorite topic. So just a quick refresher for you. I know that you've seen these things in board meetings over the years, but just kind of a breakdown for you. As you all understand, a paraprofessional is someone who has a high school GED or diploma, and that starts them at a daily rate of $75, and you can see what happens with long-term and extended long-term positions. Teacher non-certified is someone who's going to have at least 60 college credit hours that can be verified. That will start them at an $85 rate. And then we have the certified teacher. A lot of times our retirees that are going to come in and make $95 on a daily rate. We encourage them to fill 6 jobs a month. It is our hope that they will do much more than that. I will also tell you that we have this year offered a long-term sub-pay position of $100 a day to paraprofessionals to try to entice them to take some of our hard-to-fill positions in special programs, adaptive behavior, CASEL, life skills. We've been advertising this since back in the first semester. We've had one taker. We've had three. Two quit after 2 days. We've had one who has been fairly consistent, and she is currently serving in a long-term capacity at Pecan Trail Intermediate School. So Ms. Cooper and Ms. Kelly Knott, our sub-coordinator in the office, are hosting orientations twice a week. They last about an hour and a half, sometimes a little bit longer, depending on the question and answer session at the end. And then from there, it really depends on how quickly and how motivated someone is to submit all of their documentation to get them up and running into the system. We've become pretty efficient at getting them ready to go. But a lot of times, as you'll see here in just a little bit, we don't always have them show up and submit everything they need to do to be a part of the workforce. So we currently have 1,005 active subs in the system compared to approximately 620 this time last year. And that's due in large part to Ms. Cooper and Ms. Knott's efforts holding orientations twice a week. And they'll hold orientations. If there's 6 people, they're holding an orientation. If there's 60 people, they're holding the orientation. We are trying to get as many people available to our campuses as often as possible because we understand, having both most recently been principals, how demanding it is on a campus trying to fit together the puzzle pieces of what is coverage when you don't have substitutes. So we are trying to get as many people into the workforce as possible. As I stated, you'll see about the work rate, ready to work rate. Over our last 10 substitute orientations, we've had 147 participants. Only 65 have submitted all of their paperwork to become eligible subs. So this is a 44% ready to work rate. We're doing everything we can. We send them reminders, we encourage them, but sometimes more often than not, we're dealing with people who have heavy class loads at the university level or various things going on. Maybe they're a sub in another district. Or maybe it's just this is another job. Getting them to get to the finish line has proven to be a challenge, something that we are working through as we speak. So through the end of this month, with just about 3 weeks left, we will continue to host orientations twice a week, and then we'll scale it back a little bit in May because obviously we have graduations coming up for the university and obviously at the same time for our high schools, and we'll just make sure that we can do everything we can to try to meet the demand. It is not uncommon for us each week to see a dramatic increase in demand from a Thursday evening to a Friday morning. Sometimes it can go up as much as 20%, and it's just boom, 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 and it hits hard, and we do everything we can to try to get people in, and it's just the demand on Fridays increases exponentially. I am pleased to say today we have 170 subs that are currently filling positions, and we are at an 88.7% fill rate, which is pretty solid for us in this current climate.
Can I ask a quick question on that 44%? Are you saying that, that's how many show up at orientation, or even over the couple of weeks and months later, you don't get that many more ready to work?
Yeah, it's out of like I said, that's 147 people that participated in the last 10 orientations. Of that, 44% of those people, or 65, are completely good to go.
But even so, weeks later, do you get the other ones up ready?
Sometimes we do. Sometimes we don't. We just keep on having orientations and keep reminding people and trying to encourage them. They don't work for us, so we don't really have any. We're trying to dangle a carrot of come work, but sometimes keeping them motivated to get there is not always the easiest thing. And I'm like Ms. Cooper and I have discussed it once before. There might be a class on campus that is having people participate in the sub orientation just to get a feel for things and then write an essay about it. I'm not real sure. It's kind of a rumor we've heard. Sounds like a brutal assignment to me, but
Learn how to apply for it. Well, yeah, it seems like a lost opportunity there. Yeah, maybe more carrot. I don't know how to get them to.
We are trying, and so like I said, the efforts of Ms. Cooper and Ms. Knott have not gone unnoticed. I mean, it doesn't matter if there's 6, if there's 60. They will do an orientation, and that is a little bit different practice than what we've utilized previously. And the biggest reason there is because we were pushing hard. I mean, when we started off in August, we were hosting orientations. I was coming up on Saturday morning and hosting orientations because I wanted the workforce to be there to be ready for our teachers to start the school year because I wasn't sure what the demand was going to be.
Is there kind of an industry standard on the ready to work rate?
Nothing that I've seen. Obviously now Bryan doesn't do their own substitutes as you will. It's ESS, I believe it is. I think that's what it's called. They don't do anything with their substitutes. They've outsourced it, and so getting information from them can be a little bit more challenging. And then our more small rural school districts don't see the demand of subs that we need, nor do they have the volume because they don't get the college workforce that we have. So I'm not really sure on that one, Mr. Ben. So this is a snapshot of November, and I'm going to show you a snapshot of March next. I just wanted you to see what we deal with from month to month and how our increase of having over 1,000 subs ready to work is helping us in the sense of having a higher fill rate. So you will see November really hit us hard. We had an average fill rate of 76%. You'll see that we had 9 days that required 200 plus subs. Prior to the pandemic, 90% was considered a low fill rate prior to the pandemic. 200 was was reserved for Fridays. Okay. 200 has kind of become the norm now. Occasionally we'll get up over 300. And we're really happy to be anywhere in the 80s. I love to be 85 or above, but we're really happy to be anywhere in the 80 percentile range on our fill rates. And so you'll just kind of see there, we had 9 days that required 200 plus subs, with 1 day requiring 300 plus subs in November. Prior to November, we had a total of 10 days this year that had required 200 subs. So I'm going to switch it to March now, and I can always go back for you, but I want to show you 76% rate in November, and here we are just finishing up March, and we had an 81.17% average sub fill rate. And we had 13 days that required 200 plus subs, and we had 2 days that required 300 plus subs. So the demand has increased, but so has our fill rate percentage. Now, is it where we want it to be? Absolutely not. But we are continuing to host those orientations. We're continuing to encourage people to apply and to submit their documentation so we can get them into our buildings. We are having conversations all the time. But our demand, although it's going up, our fill rate is matching it. And so that, again, is due in large part to Ms. Cooper and Ms. Knott's efforts in hosting orientations so frequently.
Josh, would you attribute the increased request in the spring due to probably extracurricular activities and those types of things with teacher sponsors being out?
Yes, sir. I was fixing to mention that now. And that is very much the case. What you were seeing in March is due in large part to you have multiple sporting events going on, multiple UIL events, fine arts, you name it, things are happening from one-act play to speech and debate to Skills USA, track meets. There is a large volume of people that leave our buildings in the spring. And also we pick back up and start doing more of our trainings with C&I in different departments throughout the spring semester as well. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Any questions before I move forward?
Well, I mean, just the question of, well, what happens with the other 20% of the positions that are not filled on those days, and how is that impacting the rest of the teachers? Yeah.
No, there are no VCRs anymore. None of those. Not even an overhead projector anymore. But I will tell you that that is very much the life of a principal right now. First thing I did every morning when I woke up was I looked to see where are the holes and how can we combine things and who can we move and what classes do I need to cover. Our campuses are very good at covering their not their losses, but are covering their gaps. Obviously, for our certified teachers, if they cover up to 6 classes, they get $15 a class period for every class that they cover. And then because that gets them to the daily rate of a certified teacher, and then they'll get paid out for that as well. But it's all hands on deck. When I was at Oakwood Intermediate School, I was very much a dual language teacher. I had to apologize for the Spanish, but I did whatever I had to do. It didn't matter. If I needed to sit in ISS, I would sit in ISS. I would work from my computer there. Our principals, our teachers, everybody in their front offices, they rally and they find a way to make it happen, and they cover. And it's really and truly, it's hats off to our teachers because they're the ones that are taking it on and doing what's best for kids and making sure that we have proper coverage.
Do we also get subs for like office staff? I don't know if you need closer to it. For office staff and whatnot, whenever they have to miss?
Yes, ma'am, we do when they're available. And then some principals have opted, whenever they don't have someone in the office staff, they've opted to put that sub back out into the building just to make sure that we're taking care of our students and taking care of our teachers within the building.
Gotcha. So if someone else, say an office staff is covering, like 3 positions in the office or something, do they get, because you said that there's
The compensation piece?
Right, the compensation piece for teachers, to other staff? get
So
compensation?
if a paraprofessional were to go into the classroom, yes. Anything that's happening within, as far as picking up the slack in the front office, no, not at this time.
Thanks.
Employee overview. Quick breakdown of how all of our employees fall out through the school district. So I won't read the numbers to you verbatim, but you can see there, not at all a surprise that a large part of our employee base is at the high school level. With 2 comprehensive high schools and College View as well, we have a number of employees serving at that level. Elementary schools with 10, you can see that we have 711 employees at the elementary level.
And I would assume, Josh, that CTE and Fine Arts Central Office are located under CNI number.
Yes, sir. So I wanted to show you this trend of first-year baby teachers, as we like to refer to them as. It really hasn't increased that much from year to year. If you look at the 2018-2019 school year, we had 54. I told you that we hired 176 certified teachers from last March the 20th until August the 31st. And so you can see out of that, 63 of those were baby teachers for this current school year that we're now sitting in. I anticipate that number may go up a little bit this year, but I don't think it's going to be anything that breaks the trend of just a handful more from year to year. I would argue, in speaking to my friends in different human resources positions across the state, that this is very much a trend that every school district is currently experiencing. Specifically, your larger school districts that have more demand and more need to be met. The clinical teachers, like I said, are the ones that everybody is really targeting right now and going very hard after to try to keep them in their buildings. So teacher turnover ratio, this is up through last school year, 21-22. I'd be able to update it once the TAFER report for this school year comes out. But you can see there for College Station ISD in the gold, if you will, is always going to be below the state average. There was the anomaly of 1920. That's obviously very close. But then you can see 2021 being the weird year that it was. We dipped that down pretty low. And last year, our turnover ratio was about 14.2%. Based upon what we're seeing this year, I do anticipate it'll be a little bit lower, but it's also very early to call. And it's not something that I would feel comfortable putting an estimate on at this time. So workers' compensation, we wanted to highlight this briefly. We are very excited to have Tracy McClendon in our offices of human resources. As you all well know, she is our coordinator of safety and risk management that y'all approved this past semester. She has been tremendous in coming in and having the scope and the background knowledge of workers' compensation and really helping us get a better understanding of what it is that we're doing. And so you can see here the number of claims from year to year. We're already sitting at 95 for this year. You'll see the paid losses and the incurred losses there. Obviously, we're still very early as far as the school year goes. I mean, we're 30 some odd days away, but a lot can happen from day to day. Some days are better than others, but we do get a lot of first reports of injury. Not everyone opts to go and have any type of medical examination, but a lot of people do. And so a lot of this is campus-based and some from our auxiliary staff. Things that we're working on with Ms. McClendon, she's working with TASB right now, identifying some of our claims, trying to understand where the majority of these claims come from, and we're looking at implementing new safety trainings and procedures to try to curb these losses. Her background has proven to be very beneficial, and this takes up a lot of our time in human resources. It's not just Ms. McClendon that gets pulled away. We have one of our associates that is assisting her with it because there's a lot of documentation and paperwork that goes into this and a lot of things that have to be sent. And so that was another reason why we want to highlight that, because this does monopolize a lot of our time.
Before you get to the new, I want to ask a question about the turnover rate and really the new teacher thing, first year teachers kind of along with it. Just obviously new teachers and the turnover is hard for schools, right? So that's why we like to keep those numbers down. Do we look at that by campus and really ever do anything if, one campus turnover rate is 5% and another one's 30%, trying to manage that. And I don't know, some of it would be maybe the data from you, but also some of it would be more how would the district try to adapt to that so that one campus is not feeling the too many baby teachers, so.
Absolutely. So as far as the turnover rate per campus is something that we absolutely keep up with, and it's something that cabinet reviews very frequently. And so these are cabinet-based decisions on that level. I keep them informed. We pay attention to it. We very much understand where our needs are within the school district, and a lot of times that falls on leadership of our campuses, if you will. Naturally, high school is going to have more turnover year in and year out just because they have such a large volume of teachers, and then there's coaches and fine arts and like everything else that goes with it. There's just some more turnover there. But I can let Dr. Perry speak to Cabinet's approach.
Sure. So Josh is right. We do look at those numbers, but more importantly, why are we seeing greater levels of turnover at some campuses than others? Sometimes it's a simple explanation, like perhaps there's a head coach change that results in changes not only with the coaching staff, but perhaps of their wives. And so that would be not unexpected. Sometimes there's a leadership change at a campus, and that change has then resulted in an adjustment in expectations. And folks find that perhaps they're not the best fit. So really, for us, it's not just about there's higher numbers here versus there, but about what is that underlying cause. And those are great conversations for those principals to have with their supervisors, Dr. Hickman, Ms. Parkerson, to really dig down a little more deeply in terms of those reasons. Sometimes it can be reflective of other issues. And so those are really things that we take in conjunction with other sources of data and would really analyze to better understand how we can support those campuses. Additionally, when we're looking at higher rates of turnover, we want to also know, are we backfilling with experienced teachers, or are there a lot of new teachers at that particular campus? And because of the supports and systems that Mr. Mann oversees with our new teacher induction process and really making sure that those folks have those supports, we could provide targeted campus-based supports as well if needed.
Dr. Perry, when you mentioned the other source of data, I assume there are exit interviews. Are those done at a campus or a district level?
We do gather information. It's not required, so we don't always have comprehensive information. Another source that we just recently completed was our panorama survey. And so if there is particularly maybe a concern about campus climate or culture, that can also help point us in a potential direction of exploring further.
Have we noticed any pulling trends? Or is it just, are we just in that normal cycle? I'd imagine with a lower attrition rate, we're probably just a normal cycle. Is there anything like pay, or has there been a big pull for people out of?
In terms of the reasons for exits, we oftentimes see folks are relocating out of our area as a primary area of reason. I don't know, Josh, if you're seeing anything in particular different this year.
No, ma'am. So the predominant reason for people leaving right now is they're moving on. Somebody's graduating, somebody's finishing up a doctorate, and they're moving on, getting closer to family. They're starting a family, and they want to be closer to their parents, things of that nature. We do have an exit checklist that every employee has assigned to them, and so I do look at that information. If they request to have a one-on-one exit interview, I will always sit down with them. Last year we had 3 take us up on that opportunity. Most people fill out their exit survey, or they don't do it at all and just move on and go on down the road to their next job. You sure, Ms. McAdams?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking of 2 things. I mean, I think exit surveys can be very powerful, and even if, and I could see somebody, you would need to instigate it, or maybe the campus staff would or something to really get, it's valuable information. And then just back on the other question, I appreciate the answer, and obviously glad that the cabinet's involved. Do we ever go as far with, having to move teachers internally, or saying a teacher can't leave a campus because we do need some more experience on a campus? I mean, do we ever get to that level, or is it more, how do we address some of these issues?
So in that particular example, if a teacher is wanting to transfer off the campus, we've not denied transfers for that particular reason, because we do think that it's really important for our folks to be happy with where they're working. That supports those retention efforts. And if somebody really truly is ready for a change, then we would typically support them in that decision. In terms of recruiting, though, we certainly are looking to continue hiring not just the clinical and newer teachers, but those with experience. Unfortunately, the pool of applicants who have experience has declined over years, although it's not as significant when we look at those brand new teacher rates as perhaps it feels like sometimes when we look at the actual data.
So benefits. Second day on the job, we rolled out everything for all the information on our plans and let our people know that everybody would have to re-enroll as we were transitioning from TRS to TML Health. And out of 2,000 employees, very excited to announce that over 96% of our people did access the enrollments platform and either decline coverage or pick a coverage for themselves and their families, which was a great turnout, far more than anybody could have anticipated. And that was just from us just doing our due diligence and really working hard with principals and directors to ensure that they were communicating with their people to get that done. So that was really beneficial for us. So we currently have 1,600 enrolled in our benefits platform. Every employee is eligible for $10,000 of life insurance at no cost. We are currently reviewing all of our supplemental insurance. Ms. Draws, Dr. Perry, myself sat down last week with FFGA, who is our enrollment platform, and with Gallagher, who is our consultant through all of this, and really went through and fine-combed everything that we have, from our dental to our additional life to disability short and long, and just try to make sure that we're offering the best packages and premiums to our people. One that has been really big this school year, and one that I have learned quite a bit about, is the Employee Assistance Program. And that is with Deer Oaks. And that allows for some of our people to get free counseling services up to 6. And that can be anybody within their household. And that is something that we have very much shared a lot. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in a little bit about communication and some of the different things that we share out. And I oftentimes will put Deer Oaks, the flyer, back into it for our principals to be able to share out and remind their people on campuses. Something that we are experiencing more now with our workforce is the mental health demands. It's different than it was years ago, but it is something that is more frequently talked about. Went to a seminar last week on benefits in Austin, and for the first 2 hours we spent talking about mental health and how we accommodate the new generation. And it was pointed out that currently working within our school systems, we could have potentially up to 5 generations working within our school systems. Now, obviously, we're losing a generation with Mr. Martindale, but nonetheless, 5 generations in one school district. So you start to think about that, and there's a lot of difference there between your people who have been in the workforce for a really long time and your people that are just now coming into the workforce that have lived their whole entire lives on social media and have had their entire lives where people are talking about mental health. So Deer Oaks and our Employee Assistance Program is something that we utilize quite frequently. I asked for information and feedback on it. I couldn't get in touch with anybody at Deer Oaks, and nobody was able to provide me that information because a lot of it is very much confidential. TML offers a number of programs, wellness incentives and weight loss programs. I'm very excited to say that we had roughly 50 people participate this year in the wellness incentive of just literally going online, filling out a few questions and watching a couple of videos, and they got a $150 check. It was right before Christmas we pushed that, so some people were able to buy a tank of gas or a gift for somebody there at the holiday season. All right, here is the breakdown of how things have worked out as far as our coverage this year. You can see that 26.6% of people declined medical coverage. You see our HMO there, your consumer and your copay or your PPOs, and your high deductible plan. So pretty good breakout. We're looking at our plans for this next year, making sure that we are doing everything that we can to control premiums as much as we can as a school district and to offer our people a plan that keeps more money in their check each month. Communication. Each month we send out an HR newsletter, and with that newsletter we include a variety of different information, and what you will see here on the screen are different things. These are Canva presentations that we make that we send and we also attach within the presentation for campus principals or for other directors to be able to pull out and to send and share with their campuses. We feel like graphics are a really easy way for people to get and see information. What you see there on the College Hills Elementary is something that we created to be put out on social media, the different things that we're doing to try to help. And then you'll see the save the date there in the middle for our CSISD Employee Awards, which happens a month from today. This is more information that we share. Ramadan is something that we shared so our people would understand what some of our staff and students are going through as they enter into the Ramadan there in late March. all the way through April the 21st. Lock it when you leave. Anything that we can do to assist our campus principals and our directors and in reminding their people about cybersecurity and to protect ourselves. We really just feel like infographics like this are a quick way to catch people's eyes. And it's proven that, the less information that's there, the more colorful it is, the more likely you are that somebody's going to retain that information. So here's a breakdown of our departmental calendar. When I looked at what Dr. Dixon and Dr. Hickman had put forth a few years ago, hiring and onboarding employees was kind of a fall semester thing a little bit and a summer thing. It is year round right now. It has not stopped. It is something that we are doing constantly as we are constantly recruiting and looking for more and more people. But you can see that we stay busy, which is great. We prefer to be busy. And it's a situation where we're just learning more and more as we go along, almost at a year on the job, and we're feeling more and more comfortable as we progress. So HR procedures, talent ed, recruit and hire is how we utilize to be able to hire. And this whole entire process is automated. There are workflows and systems and groups put in place where this can be a very efficient process. And that is due in large part to the efforts of Dr. Hickman and her time in HR as she was working to get those systems up and running. We've been able to expand on those and really build off the momentum that she created while she was there. So just a quick outline of a start to finish process for hiring someone. A principal will they'll receive a resignation or they'll get approval to backfill a position and they'll submit a requisition to post. Now we keep job pools posted, okay? And anybody can go in and pull from a job pool. What's nice about a job pool is it's already been posted 10 days. You can hit the ground running and really go. You don't have to wait. If a principal wants something posted specific to their campus, say it's a cross-country coach at A&M Consolidated High School, well, that needs to be posted specific for their campus. They submit a requisition. We check, verify, make sure that that position is indeed open, that we had a resignation for the previous person, and then we post the job. We set filters for the correct people to be able to see these jobs. Obviously, Coach Schmidt, Miss Elder, Coach Starnes, Coach Simek, all of these people need to be able to see the applicants that come through. And then from there, we work our way through. Now, every applicant is initially screened by J.D. Palantine. This is, they will not be seen by anyone. Okay, the only person that can see them are myself and Ms. Cooper if they have a red flag. And that's if their name comes through and there's something there. More often than not, what I have found, excuse me, what I have found is that somebody has a very similar name to someone else who has a background. And so it will be status pending for a number of days. Sometimes it's 24 hours, sometimes it's a week. It's one of those things where I check it periodically, I check it frequently, depending on what we are looking for and who the person is. And so that is something that happens. And then obviously once someone gets hired, we then submit their fingerprints to the DPS and we get a more thorough background check on those people. From there, once our principals, our directors set their interviews, they'll go through, they'll check their references, and then they recommend someone for hire. And then it goes through the workflow. And you can see here on the right, these are all of the things that we are going to do to ensure that the person that has been recommended by that campus or that department is going to be ready to go, to the point where we've even expanded on what we do to make things more compliant with TRS as far as checking to see if they're TRS eligible within certain screens and if they're a retiree. Retiree is a big one. Because obviously there's some surcharges that we have to pay if we hire retirees in certain positions or depending on how much they're going to work. And so that is one of those things that we check very frequently. Sometimes they indicate it to us, sometimes they don't. It's just one of those things. Employee evaluations, talent ed, again, it's perform. One of the things that we were very excited about this summer is Ms. Cooper and I were able to work, and every campus submitted a piece of the framework for success that was going to be their focus, their instructional focus on their campus. And so what we did last year, Dr. Hickman and Ms. Parkerson and others led a very big effort to really try to help everybody zero in and understand what it is that is the framework of success. And so every campus picks one. And so with their efforts last year, they really built that into our walkthroughs. And so what we did is we expanded on that and created walkthroughs that correspond with their framework for success. Okay, so if you are the puzzle piece engaged, then your walkthrough form, your T-test form will have everything incorporated with it that is centered on engage, because those are the things that you should be looking for when you go into classrooms on your campus. And so that's what we were able to do. We're working right now to convert our transportation department to digital evaluations. are making good progress there. It's just one of those things where transportation has a lot of turnover, and they have people rolling in and out quite frequently. And so getting that done has proven to be a task. Performance metrics. What measures do we use in HR to determine how well we are doing? We'll show you briefly the metrics that you established just a few years ago. We need your input on these. Are these correct metrics? Performance targets, annual reports on performance. So measures typically fall into standard categories: productivity, quality, customer satisfaction, timeliness, and safety. So you'll see there in 2021, when this was last done by Dr. Hickman and Dr. Dixon, it was to maintain a substitute fill rate above 90%. We wanted to continue to maintain a teacher turnover rate under 15% and stay under state average. We wanted at least 2 HR staff capable of completing all tasks. And on customer service, it was to conduct self-evaluation of the department and plan for targeted goals, solicit feedback from campuses, departments. What I and Ms. Cooper have proposed for you this year in 2023, we want to continue to grow the pool of actively working substitutes. Those 40, that 50 some odd percent of the 147 that aren't ready to work because they didn't submit their paperwork. How can we get those people into the system? We're very excited to show you today that there was 1,005 active subs compared to 600 something this time last year. So we feel like we're on the right track, but we want to continue to expand upon that to get more workforce available to our campuses. Quality. We want to continue to maintain a teacher turnover rate lower than the state average and lower than 15%. I just want to be lower than the state. I want to stay lower than 15%, but I absolutely want to be lower than the state. That is very critical. I think College Station ISD should expect that. We're a great school district with fantastic support. There's no reason why we can't maintain that number. Now, I don't know what's fixing to happen with this legislative session, so it's to be determined in some ways. Complete cross-training to ensure efficiency in the HR offices, very similar to what they had recently with 2 HR staff capable of completing all tasks. We've got multiple people that can do every job within the HR office now. The one kind of standalone is benefits. That's because that's a very unique piece of that puzzle. And the other piece of that is the access that you have to be able to handle the benefits portion is very limited. But outside of that, we could potentially have someone go out right now for an unexpected accident or an unexpected emergency, and we would be able to manage throughout this busy season without missing a beat because everyone is ready to be efficient and everybody understands what it is that we need to do to take care of business. And then workers' compensation, working very closely with TASB and with Ms. McClendon to improve safety in the workplace as evidenced by a reduction in the number of claims by 10%. 10% may not seem like that big of a number, but when you start to consider the amount of claims that we've had year in and year out, that is actually quite significant, and it's a place to start. We certainly want to do more, but we want to be conservative in our first estimate of what we can reduce it by through the efforts of Ms. McClendon and the efforts of our office.
Are those proposed for 2023 in addition to what's up there in 2021? Or you're actually, particularly the productivity one?
So our proposed is a standalone for this year. I just wanted you to see what you had adopted previously in 2021.
And personally, I would, obviously, the sub-fill rate is still important. I understand maybe that 90% is maybe not possible at this moment, but I would still think it would be a goal and a metric that you track it, we track it, we get it reported to us. I don't see that one going away.
Yes, ma'am. I stayed away from 90% because we've been over 90% 4 days this year. One of those just came last week, 92%, and it was a great day. It was exciting.
And I think that with Ms. McAdams' point, with performance metrics, they need to be aspirational, and we shouldn't change them to match a downgrade in service. So if we keep it at 90%, and we all agree that it's not possible to do 90%, do you get fired? Do we dock your pay if it doesn't hit 90%?
I would hope not.
And then on the
That was
workers,
rhetorical. Yeah.
and then on the workers' comp, because I think the modern reality is 90% not attainable, but I think performance metrics should be aspirational, not moving the bar just so that we can get a 5 out of 5. On the workers' comp, I actually disagree with you. Is 10% too much? Because we're a human organization, there's a lot of movement. Is there a floor where there's going to be, and I don't know if there's industry data for teachers or for school districts.
So I think visited very closely with Ms. McClendon on this.
Okay.
And 10% might very well be lofty. You might not be wrong there, but I visited very closely with her and identifying some of the claims and what she's worked through with TASB. We really feel like just with some safety protocols put in place and maybe a revisiting of different things, that we might be able to really curb a lot of what we're seeing from certain areas.
And is that 10% of incidents or 10% of claims, like dollar amount?
We're hoping to reduce the 10% of incidents. So like first report of injuries, those that those that wind up leading to claims, we're hoping to reduce that with just some of the safety protocols and measures that we can put in place.
Because that's what my thought, never had to work with the worst competent school district, is that if we did a proportion of claims per teacher as opposed to year over year, because we're dealing with a fairly sizable population, so there's an inherent risk to human activity.
Yes, sir.
But then the volume of claims, because there's a difference between a paper cut and a forklift. And so I would think that the 10%, I'd push it to 15 if we did by a dollar of claims. And I defer to the experts, but I like the percentage for the dollar amount. But I wonder if we establish a target for less than of an objective number as a proportion of our population.
Yes,
for
sir.
the claim number.
That's certainly something I can sit back down with Ms. McClune and Dr. Perry, even Ms. Strauss, and we can reconsider. And as far as the fill rate, I'm more than happy to set 90% as the bar. Like, I'm hopeful for that every single day. I'm kind of looking like this when I turn it on in the mornings. Like, it's still very first thing I do every morning is check, see where our fill rate is. It's
And
like
my thought is, since I'm far enough away from Mr. Strauss, not throw things at me, is then if we're not hitting 90, but it gives us a budgetary incentive to, hey, if we're not hitting 90, but we still agree the 90 is valid, what resources do we need to put behind that to achieve 90?
Yeah, because I still go back to thinking, every percentage that we don't get there, it is affecting the principals every morning and the other teachers every day. To me, it is definitely still the goal. I understand we're in a different world than when we set it, but it's still what we need to be striving.
Understood. I'll make
for.
that adjustment.
Going back a few slides with the substitutes, I imagine that dollar amount per day, that's projected because it's when the teachers are planning to be off. Is that correct? Is that where that comes from? I'm just trying to understand the demand that's created for substitutes. How much of it's planned and how much of it's extemporaneous because somebody got sick or their child got sick?
So it really is a combination of both, because you may have teachers out that are planning to be out for either personal reasons or for training, and you know about that in advance. And then, of course, you may have those situations where your child is sick in the middle of the night and you need to stay home with them during that day. And that's what Josh spoke to in terms of just the unexpectedness of overnight, how those numbers can definitely change. In terms of the dollar amount, I just want to clarify, these are the daily rates that are paid to the substitutes that are working, and then of course work closely with Ms. Strauss in terms of an overall amount that the district is budgeting for subs annually.
I think my question with the predictability is, like, the March outs surprised me until you said, oh, there's UIL competitions, those kind of things. We know that well ahead of time. So I think with the turnover rate, if like next year we're not hitting 90 again, I'd be interested to see of unforecasted turnover on, the unfilled position, the negative space as opposed to the aspirational space.
Yes, and there's certainly trends that we can predict based on just year over year knowledge and understanding. So October is always a lot of professional learning happening. And so we often see more absences related to that. Then spring, of course, the student activities. One of the things that has become a greater challenge with subs, though, is the demand has increased, not just for those activities, but for discretionary absences. And so this sub business is very much a supply and demand, and you can focus on the supply, as Josh has mentioned, in terms of increasing the overall number of substitutes. But as long as that demand continues to increase, that's going to, of course, influence the fill rate as well.
So we talked about this in the past with Kids Club. It sounds like we have the same problem. People just don't want to work. So do we think, and I'm just going to throw it out there, do we think if we increase these pays, it'll increase our subs?
So we did increase the pay, I believe,
remember that,
2 years ago. I'm looking at Ms. Strauss for affirmation. And I know specifically the example that Josh mentioned regarding long-term subs for special education, we've offered a sizable increase without any particular takers on that one. I know that we have looked at our rates relative to districts in the area. Our rates anecdotally are much higher in terms of fill at the current rate, but certainly it's always something that we could look at to determine whether an increase would help improve those fill rates as well.
When we raised it 2 years ago, and it's probably impartial, it probably doesn't even correlate, but did we have an increase from year over year that time?
I believe, if memory serves, that we did see some improvement at the time. What I will tell you, though, having watched these rates for a number of years, is oftentimes you see the greatest influence on your subfill rates being the strength of the economy and those individuals who are looking for work in areas like substitute teaching or paraprofessional versus having employment regularly.
Yes, I don't. Given the nature of what you just said, I don't think raising it's going to change the supply of substitute teachers. My question was with the coverage, and I don't think it's a compensation issue, but I think it's just a practicality issue of, I operate on the assumption that teachers' time is in high demand personally. And I think they're at a deficit of the time that they need to prepare for their instruction, which what we pay them to do is instruct children. I think they're at a deficit of the time they need versus the time they get. And then they're covering. And so my question is, over the long term, if we assume that there's going to be, instead of a 90% fill rate, there's going to be a secular 80 to 85% fill rate, which means that more of our teachers are now covering their 4 or 5 periods and another 2 periods. How that's going to affect both the burnout and the turnover, but also the quality of instruction. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't think that's a metric, but I know that's the kind of thing, and that's why I like what you're saying. To the jumping ahead to side of the comment, I like that you are looking at those things with the surveys, the soft data, the hard data, kind of getting ahead. I think that's what I took from this, was looking ahead, because that's, I think, why we're so successful, is not getting bit in the ass.
And just one little idea on the pay while we're talking about it, again, moving that 44% up, and maybe there is some little short-term carrot. You get in the classroom, you get a bonus or something, just to get them through to increase that supply. Because, by the way, I'm not saying get rid of the metric of increase the supply. I mean, it's a leading metric to help you get to the fill rate. But just, are you going to have any more metrics? Are we going to move from?
No, I'll go back.
We
So I
done?
will tell you, as far as pay goes for substitutes, last year we spent $2.1 million approximately. This year we're looking at about a 3% increase. If I'm not mistaken, that puts us at like $2.15 million. And so we are seeing the demand is increasing. For us to have over 1,000 in the pool, it feels really great. That's a lot of workforce there, that are people that are there to take jobs. And our orientations are very well attended. We don't always get them to the finish line, but our orientations are very well attended. So I'm not sure how much an increased compensation would help us, just because of how hard we've pushed this year to try to get paraprofessionals who make $75 a day to agree to $100 a day, guaranteed job, but you got to go to a special program. Like I said, one has stuck, and that's it. And we've offered it to a number of people.
When you get back to the metrics slide, I think my conclusion of whether it's the 90% or the 10%, all that kind of stuff, I think there's not necessarily a subjective number we need, but it's us versus like schools is what I'd be interested to see. Because I think what we've seen, I like that metric of lower than state average. Because if you aim to be average, that gives us opportunities to exceed. And so that's what I'd be interested of what the 4 like school districts. Is it 85%, and then move it to 85%? And we want to be higher than that kind of thing. And same thing with the workers' comp's the big thing. Is I'd be interested to see what a normal size school district has.
Yes, sir.
Can I go back? Okay, I did have another idea for a metric that I think is kind of important, and it's more on the productivity, but it's on the hiring productivity. And you showed kind of some data on that, and we discussed the process, which I really appreciate. But do you track for just the process, like how long does it take from when you get that school principal have a need, till you get till they're interviewing, like that part of it, and then how long till you get them working? So do you track those, and should that be something we should look at? And then the other piece of it is what you were showing is, how early can we get those people working compared to, when school starts in August? And it looks like you are looking at that and trying to make some progress. So to me, those are two really important pieces right now out there as we compete with everybody else trying to get these people, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
maybe something along those lines.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a little confused on the metric of the time frame to get someone hired if we're hiring for the next school year. I think it's more important, in my opinion, to get the posting out earlier so that potential candidates know that the availability is there. And then however long that takes, it's inconsistent. It doesn't matter, because as long as we're out in front of other school districts as far as getting the post out there, rather than behind the 8 ball and we're putting the post out in May or June. So it sounds like with this incentive that we approved, that we are getting out maybe a month earlier than we have in the past. I don't know if that's correct.
So
Go in there.
obviously, we've never utilized the incentive before. With this being my first year in HR, I can't tell you with all certainty, but I will tell you that we've certainly hit the job market before our neighbors to the north. And we are very much having a lot of luck in backfilling some positions. I will also tell you that part of what happens to us in backfilling positions throughout the year, like being very efficient and getting people hired. Last year, it happened a number of times with people in special services, so art facilitators, diagnosticians, speech paths. We'd get them hired, we'd get them onboarded. They'd be fully ready to go. Jeff Mann would be sending them information, and then they would get a cold call from another school district offering them more money, and then they would call in saying, "Well, can you match $10,000 more? Can you match this?" Well, then I'm gonna have to resign and take this position, because they were doing it before the 45 days of the first day of contract. And so it's becoming more and more competitive of a market to hire special programs, specifically diagnosticians, LSSPs, art facilitators. We spoke to a speech path on the phone last Thursday trying to land a job, and she had 5 job offers. So she was like, I spent 20 minutes on the phone with her because she had a whole gamut of questions, but she was comparing us to all the other districts in which she'd been offered a job.
So relatedly, I'd like to offer just a little bit of perspective. This is my 5th year to have the opportunity to oversee human resources. And when I first came into this position, the satisfaction of our campuses with the timeliness of hire was a big concern. The systems that Dr. Hickman put in place that Mr. Simak has referenced have been highly effective at improving not only the speed and accuracy at which we hire new employees, but the satisfaction of our principals and our departments has never been higher in terms of being able to get folks in the door. There are circumstances oftentimes that are out of our control, such as fingerprinting, that are required in order for folks to start and be employed, that can skew the numbers in terms of how much time it takes from recommendation to the first day on the job. And so I would offer that the satisfaction of our hiring supervisors on campuses and departments is the very best indicator of whether or not our human resources department is doing a great job in this particular area. And I fully believe that they are at this point.
That's great to hear, because I see your point, Jeff, but I also, and maybe it's somewhat anecdotal, but I've heard from campuses occasionally where it's like, we even have a person identified, but we need to get them through the system, right? Because somebody else is going to take them because we can't. So I do appreciate that all the effort that's been put into that piece of it as well. So to me, it is kind of two things. One is how fast can we move through our HR processes, but also can we get these folks identified early?
Well, I can assure you that from my time in moving into HR, coming from a campus, Ms. Cooper's as well, like efficient and accurate is the words that we utilize quite frequently. Let's be efficient, let's be accurate. We can't afford to let someone slip through the cracks because we missed something. And so that's one of the reasons why we've spent so much time cross-training, and we have people now that are partnered up to help us be more efficient. And then Ms. Cooper and I are obviously in the summertime when it gets really busy, we're very much involved in the process. I won't not answer my phone call from a principal. I will do whatever I can to help a principal land the plane to get an applicant in the door. We are readily available to them, and we're doing everything we can to make their lives easier, I can assure you. Employee awards, 1 month from today. We are working through our presentation now. We have gotten all of our ballots in that we're going to receive, and we have our winners, and we will be more than excited to share this all with you on Thursday, May the 11th. Across the street at the Southwood campus of Grace Bible Church. Very much looking forward to that. Share this with you because this is, as I am learning, a very major undertaking. There is a lot of man hours that goes into making this happen, not just for myself, but for the ladies within my office and trying to hunt down and track down pictures of people. We put some things in place that made us much more efficient, but even with that, we are still hunting pictures. And, a few people have gotten emails like, I pick your picture if you don't. So fortunately, they seem to be coming in when people start to think about me selecting their picture. Questions and comments?
In regards to the LOIs from the job fairs that y'all saw from other districts, I want to make sure I'm understanding this. So these districts are letting their HR directors offer letters of intent for their district, and it's basically an open book of where they might be placed. Am I understanding that right?
Yes.
We are not doing that.
No, sir. That would fly against the practice of what we do currently.
While I understand in the climate we're dealing with why that might be happening, how are we going to combat that with both of you guys able to be there and boots on the ground per se? And is it something we need to combat?
So it was something that I mentioned to Dr. Perry because Miss Parrish, who I work with very closely from Texas A&M University, she called me. She was like, Josh, like they did it last year and the big school districts are coming and they've requested interview rooms on the side. They're bringing some people with them and they're going to interview on the spot. And, for those people, it's also a leap of faith for those clinical teachers in the sense of like, I'm going to go work for the school district, but I don't exactly know where. Like I could work for Mr. Martindale or I could work for Mr. Hall. Like that could be two totally polar opposites. You don't know what you're getting into. Not that there's something wrong with either one of them. It's just you're taking a gamble. We talked about it, and because it's something that I'm very much concerned about losing our clinical teachers to the bigger school districts and things of that nature, which is one of the reasons why we've doubled down and really focused hard on recruiting our clinical teachers and trying to keep them here. Start here, begin your career with us. The piece of that is, relationships and culture and campus culture and climate are huge in CSISD, and they should be huge anywhere. But for us, we are very much still a school district that values that relationship piece and values that culture piece, and we didn't want to take that away from principals. And the idea of taking 19 principals to a job fair wasn't really going to work. Now we did have 2 principals there with us. And they did have some success. I know that one of the principals, she was able to line up 4 interviews. I mean, I was out there like I was selling credit cards. Hey, you're an elementary, like I've got this elementary principal right here, like running interference, playing good defense. I mean, my hamstrings cramped up by the time it was over. So I wasn't letting anybody walk past our table. And the great thing is I went to a job fair last year with Dr. Hickman and we went to Sam Houston State and it was crickets. There was nobody there. It was just one of those things where everybody kind of already been hired or, they're focusing more like, Sam Houston's a little bit closer to Houston and various things like that. This year, we had a couple school districts next to us who are like, hey, we're going to request next year that we don't have to be anywhere around you guys. Y'all had a line around the building and nobody wanted to talk to us. And I was like, well, welcome to College Station. It's called Aggieland for a reason. You're more than welcome to stay in Houston. You don't have to come recruit here. It didn't work out so well, but we're desperately trying to get as many people in the doors as possible. I know when I was a campus principal that I utilized my team to recruit people to cold call. I always had somebody kind of an ace in the hole, somebody I knew that wanted to come over. And I always tried to avoid taking anybody from the school district. But we always looked really hard at where we could pull from other districts to get people into a different setting.
So I do appreciate that you're not just taking any warm body. I really appreciate that because these are our kids. This is our community. And so thank you for not just taking a warm body because the relationship aspect is incredibly important.
It is. And if you're going to be the campus principal and you're going to have to evaluate that person, then you should be the person responsible for making the call on whether or not that person joins your team.
Right. Maybe there's like some bill in session that says you can't do that.
There's a lot of bills out there right now, but I haven't seen that one.
I know.
Well, there's I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There's a couple of strategies, and Josh touched on those. As a principal, if you know you have a number of particular vacancies, you have two options if you want to be proactive with this. This is delegating the hiring authority to Josh. If you see this person X, Y, and Z, will you call me? Or will you, if you believe in them, will you offer them on behalf of my campus? Now, that's the trust between the principal and the type of person they're looking for the culture of their campus and the human resources office. Or you offer to go to the job fair with them on particular dates or particular campuses so that you are available to look for candidates for your campus. So there's a couple of different strategies with that. I've seen it and done it both ways, from a central office standpoint and as a principal. As a principal, I would at times go to particular job fairs because I was looking for particular people. So there's a couple of different strategies. I do, as y'all have touched on, have reservations about just offering without the principals being engaged in that process. Now, we've done this also is, for example, Josh would identify some high-performance candidates or some high-quality candidates that he sees and have kind of that short list to forward to the principal to reach out to and engage with as far as an interview. So there's good and bad to that, but I agree with what Josh says. You know, there is, as you build your campus culture, there are particular pieces you're looking for. And just to offer jobs on site, I understand how competitive this is getting, but I think you have to be careful with that because, again, the culture and the climate of the campus is ultimately the responsibility of the principal. And you start delegating that out, that becomes a bit of a challenge as to just the atmosphere you're establishing.
Well, and I do really love the clinical program. That's one thing that helps fix that problem. We get to see some of those people. I know, sorry, I have two quick questions. One is on more this hiring side. You mentioned the issues with like trying to get special services folks, right? And what are we doing specifically in that area? And this is, I'm cheating here, this is the other half of that. Have we seen any issues with how the teacher incentive allotment has possibly affected either side of hiring, getting people or potentially losing people?
So Ms. Cooper spearheads everything for us with the teacher incentive allotment, but in all the hires that we've made up to this point, we've had one person who has left another school district who already had a master's distinction. I don't think TIA is truly impacting that at all. If you listen to classroom teachers right now, the classroom's a struggle for a lot of people. Like it's a day-to-day, whether it be because of lack of subs or the various challenges that come about since the pandemic. I don't know that TIA is any reason why people are moving. I think people are moving because they're looking for a change. They're looking for a change in leadership. They're looking for a different culture. They're looking to be supported, or they're just hopeful to jumpstart their career and get some life back into it by moving to something totally different and just reinvigorating what they do. As far as your first question with special programs, I work very closely with Ms. Fuentes on a daily basis. Dr. Perry, having a background in special programs and everything else, we're constantly talking and we're exploring ideas and we're paying attention very much so to what other school districts are doing. When it comes down to compensation, we can't always touch that. But there are different things that we're exploring right now that I won't share, but I will tell you that we're exploring different things that we can do right now to better support our special programs to get more people enticed to want to stay here or want to be here in College Station ISD.
Okay. And so my second question is more on, and you mentioned this as well, obviously what we really want to do is keep our current employees happy. We want to, and we want to listen to them. I think that we've been doing the survey now for a few years. We don't see many of those details. We don't see any of those details. I don't know if, and this is more just maybe a thought, do we need to be seeing some of the survey results on our staff and our teachers happy with their, or what are some of the gaps that maybe we need to be thinking about, if any?
I would say, are we a governance body or are we an auditing body?
Well, obviously, yeah.
Are you trying to audit or you want to govern?
I'm trying to see if there are pieces of information that comes out of the surveys that we as a school board could help use to,
Let's govern.
I don't think we do because everything I've seen, they're seeing it. We pay them to make those decisions, and they're not, back to the performance metrics discussion, we're not failing any of those performance metrics.
Right,
So I don't think it's necessary for, when you say us as the board, now if you say we as CSISD, sure, I imagine it's being done. That's what they're doing.
well, yeah, so I guess the answer, I mean, what maybe I'd like to hear is that things that come out of those surveys, maybe without us seeing all the details, right? But obviously, what things that come out of those may drive some information that does need to get to us and some decisions that we would need to make. And maybe that's not just for HR. I mean, that's like we're kind of looking, it's for across the board, right? How
Before
are
I
those
hand the
used?
microphone to Dr. Perry, I will tell you that as a campus principal, I combed through that data. I was all over that data. And it's one of those things where you have to embrace the growth mindset and you have to understand, actually, some of the best advice I ever got in my career was from this bald guy behind me. And he said, be a less defensive leader. There's some truth in everything that they say. He said that to us on his day that he was announcing his retirement, and that really stuck with me, and it resonated with me, and it was something that I always utilized as a leader of a campus. And so I would deep dive into my data. There was nothing about my data that you wouldn't understand. If we went down 2 points, I wanted to know why. If we went up 20 points, I wanted to be able to attribute it to something. I wanted to understand everything about that data. And a lot of our campus principals embrace that same mentality. I will also tell you that from a cabinet perspective, they are combing through that data. There is nothing that's going unnoticed. They are looking for those trends. They are identifying what's happening on our campuses, and we're doing everything that we can to utilize that data to best support our campuses ultimately, because that takes care of our students, which is our number one priority.
And that's, yeah, what I like to hear, right? It's definitely being used campus and cabinet level, and then when there are issues that need our support, they come to us.
Issues? We don't have issues.
Okay, sorry.
We
you're
do,
right, 'cause,
do
you're right.
review those surveys results, and they generate conversation between supervisors. Yes.
Because I think you're right. I mean, the bottom line is some of the metrics, the retention, when those things are good, right? I agree. That was it.
Thank you.
Oh, I just want to say thank you one more time. Just one more. I know, this is one of those things that every time I say this every single time we have an oversight, I really do appreciate these. I learned so much from these, even though we had this, 2 years ago, right? I feel like I like these refreshers and I like getting this information. And it just helps us remember, again, what all goes into this amazing district with 2,000 employees, It's a lot of work and a lot of things that are a lot of work moving parts that we don't think about. And I say this every time I get one of these workshops, but truly, I'm blown away by all of the little parts that it takes to make us what we are. So thank you. We picked you apart today.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
For your first one, you did pretty good, so we do appreciate your time.
Thank you, board. I'll turn it over to these two gentlemen behind me.
All right, that's going to bring us to N2, item 2, consideration and discussion of possible action related to logistics of the N2 learning superintendent search process. I believe we are going to jump into exec session from here to have some discussions, then we'll come back out into open session. It also gives some time to grab a bite to eat and anything else. So unless y'all need to present anything now, we can jump to exec and everybody can grab a bite to eat and we can meet there, if that works for everybody. All right. All right, we're going to come back to open session. Turn it back over to Brad and Eddie. Go right ahead.
Thank you. When we gave you a proposal initially, when we were here a couple of weeks ago to talk to you about doing this work, we gave you a timeline, and we just want to confirm that that is the timeline that we are working toward and working by. We have done in March and April here the work that is listed there, and are moving forward. We will We will be accepting applications on this timeline through May 19th. During that course between now and May 19th, and it's another agenda item we'll talk about, we'll get some community input via survey and so forth. And then applications close on May 19th, May 22nd. You guys would, between the 22nd and 24th, review the candidate pool. And then Going down a little bit. Keep going. And then, whoop, yep, review the candidate pool, and then you can see the first round of interviews, second round of interviews, background checks, and so forth. So with this timeline, not every day may be exactly right, but it gives us a good time frame. Could you name a lone finalist on June 8th rather than June 9th? Sure, something like that. But this gives us the time frame that we're working for. This gets you a superintendent, hopefully here or close to here by July 1st, and beginning to work in July. So that was our original goal and intent. Just want to confirm with you that that's still moving in that same direction.
Yeah, I want to make sure we are clear because I think it was misreported earlier from our other meeting, but yeah, this is the intent, but it can vary due to unforeseen circumstances that
Absolutely.
are out of our control possibly.
Right.
So,
This would be our goal.
I agree.
So one of the hard dates we need to know is, when do we close applications? Are you comfortable with that being May 19th? You want to shorten that? You want to extend that? And then we'll need to start working with Carrie to set up days with you for interviews. We also had some other dates in the interim of, when do you want to review applications? Do you want to hear from the community feedback process? Do you want separate dates for those? And we'll need to get on your calendars, and that's always a struggle, but we've got time to do that. But any change to the interview, June 1st, 2nd, 5th, and 6th, things like that.
If you guys could mark those on your calendars, or if there's going to be a deviation from that, as you do your calendars, if you would let us know, that would be, we need to get that on our calendars as well. And the candidates obviously want to know that.
It's probably a dumb question because y'all put this timeline together, but if applications are closing on the 19th, does that give N2 enough time to narrow down who
Yes.
is going to be presented to us? Okay.
We'll be doing that along the way. So a large portion of that will have happened by May 19th, but yes, it does.
And I know we're kind of working back from that July 1st date. My only question would be, is kind of along those lines, is May 19th, is it too late? And for two reasons. One, I mean, it sounds like we know our application's already out there, so I would think people would be if they're interested, would be getting them in, their applications in pretty soon. Not only would it maybe give you more time to review, but and this is really a question for y'all. If there are people out there looking for jobs right now, right, and maybe waiting on another position or to decide something, and would we possibly lose applicants because they need to make decisions somewhere else? Is that a risk, or how much of a risk?
That's a fair question. I think that's always a possibility, but based on the openings that are out there, I don't anticipate that to be an issue. Kerrville just closed. Georgetown is just now opening. There's lots of superintendent positions in between, but ones comparable to this are not. I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Is there anything that we haven't done as a board that inhibits someone from applying, or that they might be waiting on something from us?
I think the thing that we were waiting on is this meeting to settle a timeline and to, really for us, it was to settle the timeline. But I think this is not too aggressive. It gives people plenty of time, but it also is urgent enough where we can get people in. So the answer to your question, Kimberly, is I don't believe that this will hamper anyone from interviewing or pardon me, applying.
I would think also, just be realistic about it, any current superintendents or anybody else, that time between May 22nd and June 1st is going to be pretty busy anyway.
Yeah.
So getting them in for interviews and so forth would,
Well, and there will be people who apply for this job for sure and already have. There will also be people that we recruit who have no intent to apply necessarily until we call them and say, this is something you ought to be thinking about, and they will begin thinking about that. And so I think May 19th is a fair date.
I was just thinking about graduations and
Right,
end-of-year
sure.
things.
Even if you cut the deadline off a
But-
week earlier, you're not going to interview a week earlier because you're
Right.
knee-deep in graduation week.
Got it.
Yeah.
Understand. I think that's
Yeah,
a
the
great
interviews
point.
are
I
after
think it's
all
a
that.
great-
Right.
A great point. So I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks.
Are most of our people going to be able to interview that June 1st through the June 1st, 2nd, and June? You know what? It'll just be down to the finalists.
Yeah. Yes, they will be.
They will make it work, huh?
I say let's proceed.
Yeah.
What else you got for us?
Community input, one of the things that we would like to, well, I don't want to jump.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Community input, one of the things we would propose is to do a district-wide survey and allow everyone in the community, parent, community member, business owner, anyone out there, we would work with Mr. Glenwinkle and his staff to get a survey out there. It's fairly short. It allows people to provide their input, and Dr. Lancaster and I will comb through that and then bring the relevant pieces to you as we need to. Obviously, you have the ability to see it all anytime you would need, but we are ready to get that going just as soon as possible. So I think everyone in the community has an input. They have the opportunity to provide that through a district-wide survey. And then we would want to meet with the principals and assistant principals and selected leadership staff, the senior cabinet, and we will get all of that arranged in terms of getting input for the position related to the type of candidate that we're looking for.
Can I just say, I think that sounds great. I think it is very important that we do at least have an opportunity for everybody in the community, both people at the school district and outside, to have a format that they can weigh in on this. So it sounds good to me.
And Dr. Lancaster and I are I got some informal feedback yesterday standing in the HEB line. So we're pretty available out there as
I've been
well.
stopped twice at church. Yeah, people have.
Go back up just a little bit. And then in terms of candidate criteria, is there anything that you would like for us to know in terms of what you would expect from the candidates that you want to interview in terms of previous experience as a superintendent, work with bond elections? Are there things that are maybe they're negotiated at some level, but things that you really want us to pay attention to as we talk with candidates and bring a slate of candidates to you to interview?
I think, given my experience on the board, I think that the two high school that should factor in. Either they've been in that kind of environment or they've managed that kind of environment.
Okay.
In addition to some other.
When you say two high school, do you mean as a superintendent or being maybe a principal in a multiple high school district or a senior administrator?
Right now, and based on y'all's thoughts, right now I think just being in that environment, I don't know that necessarily being a superintendent of a two high school district is.
They have a great appreciation for the dynamics that involve two high schools.
Yeah,
in that
that's the
district.
words.
Bingo.
Gotcha. What about superintendent experience? Is that an absolute? Is that required or preferred?
Considering this is potentially the first time that we have gone outside the district in quite a while, prior superintendent experience, I think, would be pretty important to me, at least.
Strongly
Highly
preferred
preferred.
or preferred or required?
Strongly preferred.
Sure.
And again, with that multi-high school,
I mean, there's always a possibility that someone that was like a deputy superintendent or something from a much larger district, right? And I mean,
That's why when we're doing the vetting.
I'm sorry, can we
Right.
make sure we're talking into the microphone through the recording, please?
I agree. I agree with you. And that was one of the things when we were looking at the different candidates. That's why I'm relying a lot on into
Right.
like, hey, you said this, but here's this outlier that we think will apply.
right.
I don't think if we put strongly preferred on there that it will prohibit or eliminate, or somebody in a big district won't, they would continue to pursue the position if they see that it might be a fit for them. It will stop someone perhaps who has never been a superintendent and has only worked in a small school district,
Right.
Much smaller than College Station ISD from applying. So I don't think it would limit the applicant pool that we're really looking to attract.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I agree with that. I mean, I would not want to 100% limit somebody who's an up-and-coming person from a bigger school district who is a deputy superintendent and might be a great fit here, so.
Right.
At the end of the day, you're looking for a match.
Right.
Right.
And that match, that personality fit that you gravitate to as a board may have not had superintendent experience. It certainly hasn't in the last 4 you had here. It certainly served you well.
Very true.
But I think most candidates recognize, all things being equal, you'd like somebody who's been in that chair. But that's not an absolute, we're not going to eliminate anybody. Okay, perfect.
On the bond experience, I don't know that it needs to be a requirement, but I'd like to know if they have any bond experience. So it's more along the lines of maybe their resume when we're looking at that, just because of what we might entail in November, and with all the new regulations on bonds. So that, just kind of curious.
And Jeff, I was actually going to go one step further and say, if we're saying preferred bond experience or whatever, that we make it preferred since all the law and language changes.
Yeah.
So bond experience in the last 3 years,
Since 2019.
2019.
2019.
I'm assuming, you guys, that if someone, amongst the 6 of us, if someone disagrees with something, you're going to speak up, right? Like, just want to make sure that you're good with the superintendent experience. Thomas, what we?
Well, I mean, you can look at it this way: a superintendent from a one high school, one elementary, one middle, versus a deputy from that has 4 high schools. That's why he's saying it's not a hard and fast.
Yeah.
Because if you can't,
Right.
I would lean more towards the one that's had 4 high school, been deputy with 4 high schools, than one that's just only been at small rural schools.
Okay.
Because there's a dynamic here.
So you're good with the
As
language.
long as we are preferring, but we're not going to
Sure.
rule out, then I'm okay.
Okay.
But if we put an absolute, I'd have a problem.
Okay.
Anything else on candidate criteria?
Oh, educational experience? Have we talked about that?
Well, yes, doctorate preferred,
At least a
Or does it-
GED.
pardon me?
At least a GED.
GED.
I agree with
We'll put
that.
Anyone we bring to you will be qualified for the job according to the state of Texas, obviously, in terms of the certificate that they have and so forth. So we won't bring someone that's not qualified, but there may be some criteria out there that you want us to consider. Educational requirement. Most often, these are positions that it requires a master's degree. A doctorate degree might be preferred. It might not be preferred. That really is up to you.
And I know the ultimate decision is with us, but when it comes to things like that or classroom experience, I'd be very interested in hearing what you find out from the principals and the teachers and so
I
forth.
like
If
that.
that's important to them or not.
Yep, we can talk to them about that for sure. And I think just like Dr. Lancaster said a while ago, it is you're looking for the right match, right? You're looking for the person with the experience, with the background that seems to be the right fit for College Station ISD right now, right for the next years. And so we're very sensitive to that as well. In terms of the range of salary and benefits, I think we have a right idea about that. We've done our research. We understand what that would be. The interview process, we will have another opportunity to talk with you about this at some point in the future, but we need to really think about the interview process, and that is, do you want to do 1 3 or 4 hour interview with each candidate, like a 9 to 12 type thing, and then a 1 to 4 type thing? Or would you rather do a shorter and bring people back for a second round of interviews? Or do you want to take care of this in one round, Would you want to go visit a school district of someone, a finalist that you choose? If you name a lone finalist, would that be something that 3 members of the board would want to go visit a school district? None of it has to be done, and it really is based on what you think. There's no right way to do it or wrong way to do it. It really is what you would prefer to do in terms of finding the right person for you. And so it can be done in a 1-interview session if you spend 3 or 4 hours with someone based on the vetting that we've done, based on that experience that you have and the background checks that we do and so forth. You might get all of the information you need. Or you might want to spend 1 hour with 7 candidates and then bring 2 or 3 back. So that's one of the
Is this
things
something
we'll
that
need
has
know
to be
from you.
decided today,
It does not have to be decided today, but
but
sooner rather than
sooner
later.
than later?
Yeah.
Any,
I mean, I would lean towards 2 rounds.
I'm sorry?
I would lean towards the 2 round.
Right.
We meet with them 1 hour and then go in depth with the final, say 3-ish, depending who that is.
That's
Yep.
most common.
Yeah.
And generally, the first round still often with the list of questions you're going to want to ask is going to be at least a couple of hours. To narrow that down if let's say you interview 6 or 7 or 8, to get that down to 2 or 3, you're going to have a pretty lengthy list covering the major areas of a superintendent's evaluation. Community board relations, instructional management, finances. There'll be 7 or 8 broad topics, and we'll have questions for you to kind of start from and choose from. We'll help you get your list of questions ready. But I'd count on that first round being a couple of hours at minimum. But the thing we want to think about today is, and you don't have to decide, but at least be thinking about it, how do you want to, let's say we get 60 applications. Do you want to meet with us and review all 60 resumes and letters of interest? Do you want us to narrow that down to top 10, 15, or 20? You can have access to the other 30 if you want to. Help us kind of be thinking about how you want to narrow that down. Then we help you pick the group you want to interview.
Your second option. I would say your second option. Give us 10 to 15, access to all 60, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, if you're basing it off of some of the criteria we're putting into place, and you can vet that.
Right.
I think that would make sense.
And we will certainly, as we recruit people, obviously we'll be talking to them and we'll be recruiting people that we're very familiar with. We might get a great application that we don't necessarily know as well, but we know somebody who knows them. So we'll vet them, but we'll also spend time with them prior to us showing up. And so we want to be able to share with you about them at that time as well. So we'll know the candidates that we bring to you as well as we possibly can.
And that won't happen until after May 19th, correct?
That will happen after May 19th.
Correct.
So the week of the 22nd, 26th, y'all are reviewing. And then when would we be getting maybe that list from y'all?
That during that time, May 22nd through 26th, we will need to meet with you. We will be working through that at that point so that we can arrange interviews closely after that.
So we are going to be out on the 26th. We will not be available on the 25th at night.
Correct.
So
Are we looking at that timeline again?
I just kind of, I'm just.
25th or 26th.
I know off the top of my head.
25th and 26th are graduations.
Yeah. So
You can come sit with us while we're in graduation. You can sit on the stage
Been there.
with us, yeah.
I'm just letting y'all know.
What we
Okay.
need.
So 26th, don't even call me. 25th at night, you can call me, but it's going to be on silent. But other than that,
29th's Memorial Day.
29th 's Memorial Day, so just making sure
Yeah, there's not-
everybody's, that's why we said tentative timeline.
Right.
If we
We don't-
run into an issue, then that's on us. If we need to adjust it,
Do we
and
work on
we'll
weekends?
Work with Carrie.
Are we working on weekends?
I'm not
I
working
got-
Memorial Day weekend.
I got a graduating senior. I got a party to throw.
Okay, I'm not working Memorial Day weekend.
Because of the Memorial Day weekend, if we need to bump it to right after Memorial Day, we can certainly do that. It may push our first and second round interviews back. That's okay. if it's, we want to stay in this ballpark, we don't necessarily have to stay exactly on these days.
Or should
We'll
we?
work with
I'm sorry.
Carrie to get those dates in May to review on the calendar.
Okay.
Right? And she will be able to survey you to figure out a time, common time, where we will be able to meet. Brad and I are very flexible in that time frame, and so we'll
Yeah.
make that happen.
Could we just move maybe from May 19th to May 12th for application closes?
Yeah, I think-
And that gives us a full week. I
I
mean,
think we could.
And I'm okay with that if everybody else is.
Yeah, even to try to hit those same interview dates, because.
I mean, it's a month from now.
Yep,
Yeah.
you good with
And
that?
we've been posted for what, a week and a half?
Yeah.
Have
It's
we
been
been-
posted since a few days after we met with you guys.
yeah.
The last 3 weeks have been a blur, so you got
We
me.
could meet with you then the week of the 15th. Do you have a meeting scheduled already for the week of?
On the 16th.
Yeah, so we're in town.
Are you back? May 16th?
In May is.
No, May, June, you're not. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, because I go out of town on June 13th, so I would rather,
Wait,
Yep.
You're
Well,
too, yeah.
can we just plan on extending your evening on May 16th?
ooh,
We'll come prepared? No?
Y'all want to do that, or y'all want to?
It will be a long evening.
Can someone tell me what the agenda is going to look like May 16th?
Right, that's what I was going to say. I was say, so,
You can do a special called meeting on the 15th.
Right.
Or the 17th or.
Well, but hold on, and that's what I think we're getting at, is if we close May 12th, y'all don't need technically any more days, because by then,
We'll
it
be
should
ready.
already be done, vetted, I mean, because as we've gone through the process, unless someone comes in at the 11th hour, I guess.
Right. But
Okay.
even if they come in at the 11th hour, we'll be
just
prepared
one.
for that.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's no big deal.
okay. So I think we could look at the week of May 15th and just kind of, I think at a separate meeting for now, just so that we don't feel like we're, I mean, there's fatigued and all that. I mean, we need to be fresh on that, so.
That's great. We'll work with Carrie to get a specific time for that
Okay.
week.
So keep that in mind, just on your calendars, May 15th week, to be as accessible as possible.
Then the last question I would have on the timeline would be, do you want to meet with Eddie and I prior to this meeting on May 15th, 17th, or 18th to hear the feedback we've collected on candidate criteria? Or do you want to do that in this meeting that we're scheduling on the May 15th, 17th, or 18th?
I mean, I'd prefer to do it in a separate meeting.
I would too, if we can make it work.
And this is the feedback before we review, correct?
Correct.
We can give you an update on the applicant pool then. And so
What's the time frame on something that, like that?
it depends on when we can get the meeting scheduled with Carrie. Wouldn't that still won't be a couple of weeks?
Right?
It'd be at least 2 weeks from now. I mean, I don't think we could get anything scheduled, so we get the survey going. But to get the principals in, senior staff, auxiliaries, that's going to take a couple of weeks probably to get that organized. So what's today? The 11th? Let's say the 1st of May, the first week of May.
Yeah.
I would imagine the feedback is going to be less grueling for us to take in than candidate pool. So why don't we, at the board meeting, take the feedback in, and then they can find a day after the board meeting in May for us to do, review the pool.
At your regular May 16th board meeting?
What do you think? Because that would be less intense.
It will not be intense, correct.
Do you have a workshop meeting?
We always
scheduled
have a
earlier in
workshop
May?
meeting.
Not always.
Just May 16th?
Yeah, workshop and board. So y'all are wanting to do the 16th for the candidate feedback from them in,
So that could be, if you schedule the review of the candidates on Monday, the 15th, the feedback will be the day after you.
We'll just have,
should be the other way around.
we'll just have to schedule that
I thought we were talking about the week of the 15th, not the 15th.
Right.
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 But if the date available is the 15th,
Oh, no, I'm just saying the week of the 15th is wide open, is what I'm hoping for everybody. Whether we do feedback on the 16th, another meeting on the 18th, then so be it, if everybody's,
So we'll plan on giving you feedback at the workshop on the 16th.
okay?
And planning the meeting where we review candidates and so forth after that day.
Okay,
So either the 17th or 18th.
That'll work.
Or 19th, sometime through there.
okay.
Okay?
That work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah,
good
and we can
suggestion.
talk about, we can talk, because we meet tomorrow for planning. So we can talk about, make sure we leave that space.
That's for April.
I know. But, I mean, are we allowed to, at our meeting tomorrow, say, okay, is there anything extra we need to put?
Oh, for
This month,
April because of May.
knowing
okay,
that-
Right, what we have coming.
Right.
I got you.
Am I making sense? Okay.
Get back to the agenda.
I think better eyesight. Okay. We got interviews, okay. And then strengths and weaknesses.
And then, I think Dr. Lancaster and I have a really good feel for what the strengths and opportunities are here, but we obviously want to hear from you related to strengths and opportunities. This won't be the last time that we meet with you, so it doesn't all necessarily need to come out today. But we would like to hear from you when we talk with you again about what do you see as the strengths of College Station ISD, and then what are the opportunities? And we'd love to get some feedback from you today related to that. That helps us as we communicate with candidates that we have talked with the board, and here's what the board sees and thinks about the district. One of the great things about the world we live in, the candidates have access to almost anything we all have access to, right? So they'll be able to make a lot of determinations about that as well on their own as they look at different data in different pieces of CSISD. They'll explore that. But certainly we'd love to hear from you related to that as well.
So
I think
I think the first strength that I'd point out, because I was part of it, is our strategic design plan, and I'm a big fan of it, not only because of how intricate it is, but what it's been able to provide for our campuses. Having been a child and a spouse of educators for so long, I heard different things of, this is what we're doing this year, and then it'll change next year. And haven't heard that since our strategic design has been put in place. And that has been one of the best things that I've heard. So having that in place is what we call it, the framework of what our district is and our goals and things like that. So that being a huge plus is one that I hang my hat on. And then I'll just talk about, because it probably won't get brought up, but as the president of the board, we have a pretty dang fantastic board, and we're good folks, and we understand and we listen, and I feel we're able to come to some conclusions, and we can disagree to agree very well when it comes to making decisions. I think a lot of folks have seen that over the years. A lot of us have dealt with a whole lot of stuff between COVID and everything else, and masking and not masking and everything under the sun. And we've pulled through and we persevered through it, and we've been successful at it. So
We've gotten stronger, I think.
yeah. So I think that's a big one that probably wouldn't even come out, because it's not about us, but it's a positive of CSISD, and it needs to be recognized. And maybe that's why I'm hearing from different folks around the state, board member wise, that they're telling their superintendents not to apply and things like that, or we're a horrible board. I don't know, but I'll take that as a feather in our cap that we're doing something right. And Mr. Simek even talked about it earlier. I mean, there's districts that don't even want to sit next to us at job fairs. There's a reason for that. We've got great people here, and our board works well together with everybody in administration, and I think we represent our community pretty well.
That's great. Thank you.
You went right into, we have a strong administrative team. We have a strong cabinet team. I mean, I think that is huge for somebody coming in. It's one of the reasons we can, still sleep at night losing Mr. Martindale, is because we do have a great team in place that's, and obviously that's going to help with transition with anybody coming in. And it's the cabinet in here, and I think it's also most of our, our administrative team out at our schools as well. So that's a biggie.
We come from an educated community,
Yep.
a very knowledgeable community that is involved and supportive as well. I mean, financially and in our schools, they volunteer. Our community is a big part of it. And I mean, I'm interested to see what they say in our little survey as well,
Great.
Yeah, that's Education Foundation, and just outside
Right.
of that, it's just an example of
Right.
that, yeah.
And your comments remind me of your comments when we were talking about the criteria. That's the only thing, when we look at new superintendent, we've got a pretty good wheel. We don't need somebody that's going to reinvent the wheel. We want somebody that understands that we're on a good trajectory and helps us maintain that trajectory.
Oh, something. This might be a personal thing for me, but on criteria, a big one for me personally is the community-based accountability.
Okay.
That we are not STAR. We don't hang our hat on STAR.
Okay.
That we have a community-based accountability.
Yeah.
Or in addition, I mean, just.
Right. In addition to, and we have worked on that.
Okay.
It's important.
That's great.
I would say we, compared to other districts, we're extremely financially stable.
Yes,
Got
that's-
good bond rating, had an excellent someone at the helm. I think she's behind me.
She's watching it as you
Yeah,
speak,
she's
right?
watching it, yeah. So, no, I think we have excellent business operations. It's already been brought up. And extremely, as it's been said, extremely supportive community.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
100%.
All of those things are obviously very important to candidates that would come in from. Opportunities, things to be thinking about in the future?
They were only a top 16 district. We could be better.
Well, yeah, why not a
Maybe.
top 10, right? Right, okay.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah. I think that is the opportunity is, what's the next level? We've grown our CTE program, our fine arts program, drastically in the last few years. And that was, I'm sure, a goal and things like that. So, what that next opportunity is, the sky's the limit on it, because we are in the shadows of one of the top universities in the nation, in the world. And from how I understand it, they're really wanting to branch out and partner with community-based issues and things like that, which is a benefit for us being right here. So I think as everybody starts to evolve, and learn the new ways after the pandemic, that the opportunity to just kind of expand CSISD into the next decades provides an opportunity that is a little different than being in the big city and things like that, because you are so landlocked or whatever that may be. So the vision comes to using what we currently have and just evolving from there.
Okay,
Right, and bringing this community together with that goal in mind.
okay.
Do what?
People don't move here for the beach access. They move here for the good schools.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I think that is all very helpful. Don't want to cut it off, but also.
One other quick thing on opportunities. Obviously, we have identified some of our opportunities, back to what Jeff said about our strategic design, our strategic plan. So, I mean, yeah, we have some, but we're working on them, and I want to, hopefully we'll keep working towards those. And then I'd even just point out the one that what Lane brought up, just the community building of the two high schools still, and making sure that we are as one community. I mean, I think that continues to be an opportunity for us, so.
You'll have to build that third high school, right? So-
Excuse me, we already
a
have
long-range
3 high
planning committee
schools.
for that.
We already have 3.
Very good point. Thank you.
We have a
You're-
committee in session.
You're 100% right.
Third comprehensive.
You're 100% right. Thank you. I think the strategic design framework, obviously, a lot of that is available on publicly, and so that will help candidates, and it's certainly something we can refer them to as a foundational document for College Station ISD. That could help them as well as they analyze the opportunity here too. Great. Did we cover what we needed to?
Yes, sir. I think it goes without saying, we are already well underway with applicants. We have a large number of people who've already sent their credentials to us. After today, as we've discussed, we're going to start contacting specific people and doing some specific recruiting. But it's wide open and it's well advertised and well known. But we're honored to help you with this process. As local boys, this is a personal interest to us. And you have our contact information. You have any questions along the way, all you have to do is ask. And we're here to help you understand the process.
Great.
Any other questions? Thank y'all for being here. We appreciate it for getting this up and rolling. That will bring us to item G and adjournment.